So, to begin there, guys, Brian here, the Three Topics Gamer, here to give you another one of my weekly Q&A to how the people's questions are answered. Here's the questions presented to me over the past week. This episode was relatively basic. However, I will have to say the quality of questions I got wasn't all that impressive. A lot of these, if not all of them, were just either too simple or they didn't have much depth, or... But I guess, I guess we'll get some of those episodes every once in a while. I guess everyone's just a little bit off their game, but whatever. So, like always, if you do happen to enjoy this episode by the end, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to keep track of me on my future episodes. So, starting off with the first question, coming from Virgil, the son of Sparta, you want to know, if I were living in Midgard, what job profession would I like to have? Probably a mechanic, or anywhere that doesn't get me in any trouble, or doesn't get me around any monsters, just something where I can just work on machines, I guess, and just mind my own business. I mean, if I'm living in Midgard, I just kind of want to just mind my own business. I don't want to do anything special, so probably a mechanic. Next question comes from the Batman of Neo Gotham. He wants to know, in my opinion, what video game do I consider to have one of the worst launches in the past few years? Definitely Cyberpunk 2077. That game was buggy. It didn't perform very well at all. And it was clear that game was, for a game that had the amount of time for development that game had, to have its game come out in the condition that it was in. I mean, even had like a massive day one patch, and it was still buggy as hell and crashed all the time. It's only till like recently where it's actually kind of in the condition that it probably should have been at launch. I think if it had been in that condition that it's in currently, I think the reception would have been much better. But yeah, at launch, it was a total disaster. Next question comes from Zach Tarf, who wanted to know, do I think that Capcom has mistreated Jill Valentine? I don't really understand what you mean by mistreated. I mean, she was just fine in the Resident Evil 3 remake. And we really haven't, I guess chronologically, we haven't really heard from her at all since Resident Evil 5. So, I don't really think you can call that being mistreated. It's just a simple fact of, well, we just don't know what to do with her. But I wouldn't call it being mistreated. It's just like, we don't really have much of a use for Jill Valentine anymore. I mean, her story, as far as we know, her story's over. As far as we know, she could have retired, and that's it. We don't need to bring her back anymore. We got plenty of other characters. In fact, I would prefer that they do that. Start retiring older characters and then focus on newer ones. I mean, I'm fine with that. Next question comes from Shadow Thesis Gaming, and you want to know, Nemesis versus Predator, who wins and why? Oh god, I hate versus questions. I guess Predator, because number one, the Predator is going to be smart enough not to try to go head to head. And how is Nemesis going to track him with his adaptive camouflage? I mean, as far as we know, the Nemesis computer can't track people that have adaptive camouflage. So all the Predator has to do is stay distant, stay cloak, and just shoot at Nemesis from multiple different directions with his cannon. And then when he takes enough damage, he can just go up close and then blow Nemesis' head off. I mean, he ain't ripping his spinal cord out. I mean, just the head and spinal cord alone is probably bigger than the Predator himself. So he just needs to keep his distance, blast him a few times, and then get up close and blow his head off, and that's about it. What's Nemesis going to do? How can he fight what he can't see or he can't track? And the Predator is just going to be probably circling him, going from one spot to another. He'll maybe fire one shot, move to dip position. Maybe Nemesis will shoot where he thinks the shot came from, but the Predator won't be there. So you just have to get past his cloak. Now, if he could find a way to turn off his cloak or track him, then I think the fight would be a little bit harder to determine. But yeah, that cloak changes everything. I mean, every time anyone is engaged one of those Predators, you typically need to make sure they're decloaked first before you can even really have a chance to take them out. But heck, if you can't do that, well, you don't really stand a chance. Or at least know he's there, or at least know where he's coming from. Next question comes from ZVisions. And he wanted to know, what's a game that I was excited for but didn't live up to expectations? Easy. Star Wars The Force Unleashed 2. I really liked the very first game. I actually went to the midnight releasing for the first game when I was in college in '08. So when the sequel came out, I was really excited about that. I actually did go to the midnight releasing for that game as well. And then I brought it home, and I beat that game in less than 4 hours. And I was like, what? I mean, it was like it's probably one of the shortest Star Wars games I've ever played. I mean, you start off on Kamino, then you go to some prison planet, and then you visit Yoda for like 5 minutes, and then you go back to Camino. I was like, what? And it was just insanely easy. So yeah, I was really disappointed with that. So yeah. Next question comes from Brady Burke. You want to know what moment in Resident Evil surprised me the most? Probably them killing off Wesker. I mean, Wesker had been like the main villain for the whole franchise, so it was a bit surprising that they decided to kill him off. And yeah, I don't think the franchise has ever really been the same since then. So yeah, that surprised me. I figured he would have gotten away somehow or survived or been cloned, but no, apparently he is dead, dead, dead. And the last question of the episode comes from Red Guilties, and he wanted to know what is my favorite moment in the God of War franchise. Probably when Kratos and his son had that drink in the elevator. It was like a quieter, tender moment, and seeing how I never had a moment to experience something like that with my own father, I was just kind of like, oh, that's a sweet moment I would have liked to experience personally, but I never had. But heck, I thought it was really nice in that game, and I say that's my favorite moment. So with that will handle all the questions, all the primary questions I was able to answer for this particular episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If there was a question that you sent in, but you know you didn't hear it in this video, just make sure you check the comment section of the last video because chances are I answered it there. And like always, thank you guys for watching. You're awesome, and I will see you all next week.